So friends, now let us start the next concept. The next concept is number 1, the effective exchange rate. External debt including the external commercial borrowings, NRA banking, convertibility of currency, and barriers to trade. So we will discuss each one of them, 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. We will discuss each one of them in 5 different video sessions. So each video session will be ranging between 15 minutes to 35-40 minutes, right? So let us start with the first concept, that is the effective exchange rate, right? So to understand the effective exchange rate, first let us discuss what is effective exchange rate. Why effective exchange rate, right? So effective and exchange rate, there are two major terms. Exchange rate we have already seen, it is indicating the relationship between the domestic currency and one foreign currency. One foreign currency, for example, US dollar. So when we say rupees 70 per US dollar, so it is indicating the relationship between the domestic currency and one foreign currency. One foreign currency, that is the USA's foreign currency. Now coming to the effective exchange rate. Effective exchange rate, it indicates the relationship between the exchange rate of domestic currency and a group of, or a basket of, basket basically means the group, a basket of foreign currencies. Now you might ask a question, sir, why we are taking this basket, why at all? So for that we need to understand one next thing, that is the trade competitiveness. Trade competitiveness, or we also call it the export competitiveness, right? So any country, for example India, is involving itself into the transactions of export and import with many other countries. So it is doing the transactions with the USA, UAE, Japan, China, America, all those countries. All those countries are called trading partners of India. So India is doing the trade or the export and import transactions with the trading partners, right? Now to check how much competitive India is in relation to its trading partners, we take the help of exchange rate, right? So at this point of time, I would like to remind you one concept. So in the last session we discussed about depreciation and appreciation of the exchange rate, and in case of depreciation, India's export competitiveness is enhanced, and in case of appreciation, India's export competitiveness is reduced, right? So depreciation and appreciation in the exchange rate with one country impact the export competitiveness or trade competitiveness with that country, right? Now if we want to check the overall export competitiveness of India, the domestic currency, the best way will be that we compare the domestic currency with the average exchange rate of all the important trading partners, right? So if India wants to compare its export competitiveness with its trading partners, with its trade partners, then it will check the relationship between the domestic currency exchange rate and the exchange rate of trading partners, trade partners, right? Now these trade partners, for the purpose of calculation of export competitiveness, we take in two categories. the top 6 trading partners and top 36 trading partners, right? So we establish the relationship between domestic currency exchange rate with the exchange rate of trade partners. So in the first effective exchange rate, we are saying the relationship between the Indian rupee or domestic currency exchange rate with the average of 6 trading partners. And in the another case, we are saying the INR relationship between the 36 trading partners exchange rate, right? So this is one exchange rate, effective exchange rate, and this is another effective exchange rate, right? So the purpose of calculation of effective exchange rate is to check the export competitiveness of India in relation to its major trading partners, right? So at one level, we check the export competitiveness with the top 6 trading partners, and at another level, we check the relationship with the top 36 trading partners. Okay, so this is how we calculate the trade competitiveness, right? So for calculating the trade competitiveness, we are establishing the relationship between the domestic currency exchange rate and a basket of foreign currency exchange rate, right? So this is how this effective exchange rate works. Now, this effective exchange rate, it can be of 2 types. It can be either in nominal terms, or it can be in real terms. Now you might ask a question, sir, what is the meaning of nominal and what is the meaning of real? So if you have already covered my lecture of national income, I discussed the concept of nominal GDP and real GDP in that chapter. So what is the difference between the nominal GDP and the real GDP? The nominal GDP means the GDP without eliminating the impact of the inflation, or the GDP at the current prices. The real GDP means the GDP after eliminating the impact of the inflation, or the GDP at the base year's prices, right? So similarly, when I say nominal effective exchange rate, that means we are comparing the domestic currency exchange rate with the foreign currency exchange rate without eliminating the impact of inflation. And when I say real effective exchange rate, that means we are comparing domestic currency exchange rate with the foreign currency exchange rate after eliminating the inflation, right? So the differentiator between the nominal effective exchange rate and real effective exchange rate is the inflation, right? So based upon this discussion, now we will read the language. Usually the exchange rate is determined for a domestic currency against a single foreign currency, right? So I said suppose INR, the Indian rupee, and $1, right? So 40 INR and $1. So this is called simple exchange rate. This is called exchange rate. The effective exchange rate or EER, effective exchange rate or EER, is fixed against a basket of currencies, right? And basket basically means a group of currencies, right? And there are 2 kinds of effective exchange rate. One is nominal effective exchange rate, another is real effective exchange rate. So this is called nominal effective exchange rate, and this is called real effective exchange rate, right? So this is how this effective exchange rate works. Now we will discuss NEER and REER. First of all, nominal effective exchange rate, NEER, right? So unlike the relationship in a nominal exchange rate, NEER is not determined for each currency separately, right? Because this is the effective exchange rate. So effective exchange rate is determined against a group of currencies, not against one foreign currency. Instead, one individual number, typically an index, right? So this NEER is basically an index. It is an index it expresses how a domestic currency's value compares against multiple foreign currencies at once. The nominal effective exchange rate. Now read, this is the definition. This is the definition of the NEER, right? And if you have understood that discussion which I just did, you can actually understand this definition very clearly. The nominal effective exchange rate is an unadjusted. When I say unadjusted, that means without eliminating impact of inflation. Without eliminating the impact of the inflation. The weighted average, right? So we are taking the weighted average. That means for different currencies, we are taking the weightage. So some currency might be more important. For example, US dollar can be more important than the Japanese yen. So when we are taking the average, we are taking the weighted average. So we are giving the weight to each currency depending upon how important it is for our trading purpose. So weighted average rate at which one country's currency exchanges, that is domestic currency, basket of multiple foreign currencies. For NEER and REER, the basket. Now, which basket we are talking about? So which group of countries we are talking about? The group of countries is basically the SDR currencies. SDR currencies. And do you know what are the SDR currencies? Can you name? Can you recall? So friends, I will keep testing your knowledge. I will keep testing whether you are revising or not. I will keep interlinking. So far in this session, I have interlinked the concept of depreciation and appreciation, the concept of nominal GDP and real GDP, and now the concept of SDR. And here I am not going to give you answer. This is the homework for you. Go back to the lecture from my course and revise that lecture. And if you already know, then it is well and good. But I am not going to tell. Because if I tell you, then I am doing disservice to you. You should feel uncomfortable if you are not able to recall. Because that means your attention was not there when you are watching the lecture. So it's not a punishment. Don't worry. I am not punishing you. I am just making you more alert in case you are not alert. This is my duty. I am a teacher. I am your coach. So I know that you should be alert. And in case you already know, then be happy. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to those people who have missed recalling the meaning of SDR, right? Now coming back, in economics, the NEER is an indicator of a country's international competitiveness, right? So I told you it is also called as the trade competitiveness or export competitiveness. Forex traders. So forex traders means the traders who are working in the foreign exchange market. The forex traders sometimes refer to NEER as the trade weighted currency index. So if you hear the term trade weighted currency index, this is nothing but the NEER. So this is the alternative name given to the NEER. So in the prelims examination, if you find trade weighted currency index, just understand that this means NEER. Now, how to calculate the NEER? The calculation of NEER, I am sure that they are not going to ask in the examination, but still you should know. So NEER is equal to domestic currency exchange rate in terms of SDR, right? So what we do, we compare the domestic currency exchange rate in terms of SDR, right? So we compare the domestic currency exchange rate in terms of SDR, and then foreign currency exchange rate again in terms of SDR. This is how we calculate the NEER. Now it is very simple. It is very simple that if domestic currency increases, right, that means if the domestic currency increases, that means if the external value of domestic currency appreciates against a basket of other currencies inside a floating exchange rate regime, NEER is said to be appreciating, right? So it is very similar to the appreciation in the exchange rate. If the domestic currency falls against the basket, the NEER is depreciating, right? So if the external value is depreciating, that means the NEER is depreciating. I hope the concept is clear to you. Now, REER, real effective exchange rate. So, nominal effective exchange rate NEER and real effective exchange rate REER. What is the difference? REER is basically just eliminating the impact of inflation from the NEER, right? So NEER may be adjusted. It may be adjusted to compensate for the inflation rate of the home country relative to the inflation rate of the trading partners. So the resulting figure is the real effective exchange rate. So whenever you hear the term real, just understand this real basically represents that we are basically eliminating the impact of the inflation, right? So whenever you hear the term real, that means eliminating the impact of the inflation. So REER is equal to NEER, nominal effective exchange rate, multiplied by the domestic price index, that is the domestic consumer price index, divided by the foreign price index, that is the foreign CPI. So this is how we calculate the REER. From the examination point of view, you do not need to remember the formula, but you just understand the concept. You just understand three important things. One, effective exchange rate means the exchange rate between the domestic currency and a basket of foreign currency. This basket represents the SDR basket. Third, the real effective exchange rate is basically adjusting the NEER for the CPI. If you understand these three lines, and also one more line, you can understand that effective exchange rate represents the trade competitiveness. If you understand these four lines, then you are thorough with this concept, right? Now, REER is arrived from NEER the way real GDP is arrived from nominal GDP after correcting it for the price change, that is the inflation, right? So I already told you it is the same thing. It is just written in the language. I already told you, just like we calculate the real GDP from the nominal GDP, similarly the real effective exchange rate is calculated from the nominal effective exchange rate, right? Now, which index we use for the price index? So we use CPI combined. Now my question, which agency gives the CPI combined? So this is the question for you. Stay with this question. If you don't know, go back to the chapter of inflation and see this. Your examination is approaching. So you should not be lazy. You should revise your concepts. The way it is calculated by the basket of SDR currencies, there are two other EERs, right? So just like it is calculated with the basket of SDR, so one thing is that it is calculated with the basket of SDR, and apart from this, the RBI has given two other basket. The one basket is top 6 trading partners, and another basket is the next 36 top trading partner currencies, right? So there are three baskets through which we calculate the this effective exchange rate. So RBI is publishing this effective exchange rate every month in its bulletin. So on every month basis, we get to know whether our export competitiveness is increasing or our export competitiveness is decreasing, right? So accordingly, the exporters, importers, government, banks, financial institutions, IMF, World Bank, all those agencies can take many policy decisions. So the banking capital transaction, what are these? So basically, there are lot many people who are Indians and who are residing outside India. Right? So you might be having many people in your family, friends. They can be they're outside India for education purpose. So maybe they are pursuing some masters, or maybe they are for employment purpose. They are working in some government organization like United Nations, or maybe a private company like Infosys, or they can be for any other purpose also, right? For personal purpose, like for example, for the purpose of staying there after the marriage. Now when they are residing outside India for a period of more than 6 months, right? So they are the basically citizens of India and they are residing outside India for more than 6 months for any of these purpose. Such people are called NRI, non-resident Indian. They are called non-resident Indian, and they may be there for the education purpose, for employment purpose, for business purpose. So they may be earning some amount. Or maybe they are saving some amount. Now this amount they want to keep in Indian bank account. Keep in bank account in India, right? So although nowadays it is very unsafe to keep bank account in India, we have seen the examples of PMC and Yes Bank, all those, right? So we can see that it is not very safe to keep the bank account in India now. There are doubts on the health of the bank. We come to know about the health of the bank when RBI imposes a ban on the depositors money, right? So when they want to keep their earning and saving on any income or any money whatsoever, they want to keep in India's bank account, they need to open some bank account, right? And these bank account can be of 3 different types. Right? So when they keep the money into India's bank account, this is called NRI banking. The banking transactions which are done by the non-resident Indians, right? So this is called non-resident Indian banking, NRI banking. And do you remember in the BOP statement at which place did we write this banking capital transactions? I hope you remember. So in the BOP statement, this banking capital transactions, they came in the capital account category, right? So it is part of the capital account category because it impacts the assets and the liabilities. It does not impact the income and expenditure, right? So it impacts the assets and liabilities, external assets and liabilities. So when these NRI, they are depositing the money into India's bank account, it is the liability of India's bank account and it is the assets of NRI. So there is an impact upon the assets and liabilities. That is why this is part of the capital account transaction. So now in this session, we are going to discuss these 3 different types of bank account, right? So let us see little bit language part. So in the language, you will get more concept from this discussion itself. So it is a transaction of external, that is external basically means foreign country. It is a transaction of external financial assets and liabilities, right? So I told you, for the NRI, this is an asset, and for the bank in India, it is a liability. Liability means it is an obligation. It is an obligation which it needs to repay in the future. So it is a transaction of external financial assets and liabilities of commercial banks and other cooperative banks, right? So banks, right, as an authorized dealer in the foreign exchange, so they are one of the important players. They are called authorized dealer. Authorized dealer is a technical term. You just understand that they are one of the important player in the foreign exchange market. So I told you that just like there is a commodity market, similarly there is a foreign exchange market also. So in the foreign exchange market, this is an important player, right? They include the NRI deposits. So these NRI deposits, they can be in three kind of different bank accounts. So we will discuss about that also, right? So just read this. So take 30 seconds and read this. In order to provide a safe haven for the incomes earned by Indians who work in foreign countries, Government of India in association with RBI launched NRI banking services in 1970. This is a special banking service offered only to those Indian citizens who work or hold business outside the country and are looking forward for a banking channel for savings and remittances. Based on the underlying currency and the mode of use, NRI banking permits three types of accounts which are available with private as well as public sector banks. All of them are governed by exchange control regulations, right? So it is available with the public bank and the private bank both, and they are governed by the foreign exchange regulations. Foreign exchange regulations means there is a law, the Foreign Exchange Management Act. So this law is called this is called FEMA, Foreign Exchange Management Act. Types of NRI bank account: number 1, NRE, non-resident external account; number 2, NRO, non-resident ordinary account; number 3, FCNR, foreign currency non-resident account, right? So you will find the non-resident word common in all three. In the first one, external; in the second one, ordinary; and in the third one, foreign currency. They are the unique words. Now let us see the features of each one of them. And before that, let us see the meaning of NRI once more, and this time we will see the meaning of NRI as per the Income Tax Act, right? So this NRI, this word is basically taken from the Income Tax Act. And you know friends, I am a chartered accountant, so I can actually teach you with an in-depth level, right? So Income Tax Act. As per the Income Tax Act, those people who stay outside India for any purpose, maybe for work purpose, business purpose, employment purpose, and they stay outside India for more than 180 days during one financial year, during the current financial year, they are called non-resident Indians, right? And why do we need to categorize them into non-resident Indian? Once they are non-resident Indian, then their income tax, the calculation of income tax is changed. So we do not charge 100% income tax from them. So we do not charge income tax on 100% of their income, right? So there are only certain transactions which they do with India on which we charge the income tax. On the rest of the amount, the country in which they are residing, for example, if someone is working in UK, then UK government is already charging the income tax. We will not charge the income tax from that person. So for avoiding the double taxation, we actually classify that person as the NRI. So this NRI term is coming from there, right? So this entire discussion is that thing only. So take 30 seconds and just read this. You will get this. And in fact, you just read these 2 lines. Do not read this third paragraph. Now, first let us also read this. So here there is a term which I have not yet introduced, that is person of Indian origin, PIO. So who is person of Indian origin? The person of Indian origin is a person who is not a citizen of India, right? So if we compare PIO with the NRI, NRI is a citizen of India, but PIO is not a citizen of India. PIO is no longer a citizen of India, he or she is a citizen of some outside country. And at the same time, either the PIO has been a citizen earlier, so the person surrendered the citizenship of India and took the citizenship of some other country, or the ancestors, the father, mother, grandfather, grandmother, and so on. So any one of them, they have been the citizens of India, right? So either the person himself or herself or his forefathers, her forefathers, they have been the citizen of India. Then that person is called PIO, person of Indian origin, right? So NRI, the non-resident Indian, is a citizen of India right now, and the person is living outside India for some earning purpose, education purpose, or any other purpose. But the person of Indian origin is not a citizen of India, but that person is having the roots in India. So this is the difference between the NRI and the PIO. This is the main term that I want to introduce, right? So now again read this slide, take 30 seconds. So in India's banking terminology, the term NRI account. So NRI account basically means the account held by the NRI person refers to the funds deposited by a NRI with a financial institution authorized by the Reserve Bank of India to provide such services. A non-resident Indian is an Indian citizen, right? So the person is a citizen who primarily resides. So residence is outside India, but the person is citizen of India. If a person is NRI or PIO, he or she can, without the permission of RBI, open, hold and maintain the different types of accounts, the bank account with an authorized dealer in India, that is a bank authorized to deal in the foreign exchange. So authorized dealer means any bank who is authorized to deal in the foreign exchange. NRO saving account can also be maintained with the post office in India, right? So there is one type of bank account which is called NRO, non-resident ordinary account, that can be held even with the post office. So rest of the account can be held with the bank only, and this NRO account can be held with the post office also. Now the difference between the NRI and PIO. The non-resident Indian is a citizen of India who holds an Indian passport and has been temporarily emigrated to another country for a period of 6 months or more for employment, residence, education, etc. PIO, the person of Indian origin, PIO is a person of Indian origin or ancestry. Ancestry means whose forefathers have the origin in India, but who is not a citizen of India. Please be careful, not a citizen of India, and is the citizen of another country. So the person is already the citizen of another country, right? A PIO might have been a citizen of India and subsequently taken the citizenship of another country, or have ancestors born in India or other states, right? So this is the NRI card and this is the PIO card, the passport basically, right? Now the foreign currency non-resident bank account, FCNR bank account, right? So here you can see this is held in the foreign currency. This is held in the foreign currency, right? So this is maintained only in the pound sterling, US dollar, Japanese yen, euro, Canadian dollar or Australian dollar. So it can be maintained only in these currencies, foreign currency account, right? So it will not be maintained, the balance in the account will not be reflected in as the INR. The balance will be reflected as either one of these currencies. It can only be held in the form of term or fixed deposit, right? So it can be held only as the term deposit or FD, not the saving account. So it cannot be held in the form of saving account. The maturity term ranges from 1 year to 5 years, right? So any fixed term or the fixed deposit or term deposit is having some maturity, right? So this maturity ranges from 1 year to 5 years. Only NRI or PIOs, right? So only NRI or PIOs. So the person who is not a PIO or NRI, so if the person is purely an Indian citizen and not an NRI, that person cannot hold the account. If the person is purely a foreign citizen and not a PIO, then also that person cannot hold the account in this type of account, right? So these are the basics. Now friends, you can think, sir, from the examination point of view, what is important here, right? Because you want to score the marks in the examination. So in the examination, you just keep in mind that this account operates in the foreign currency, it is held only in the FD, and it is only for the NRI or PIO. Just 3 points you remember. Next, non-resident external rupee account. So please be careful, this is a rupee. So this will be maintained in the Indian rupee. The balance in this account will be reflected in the Indian rupee. It will not be reflected in the foreign exchange, and may be opened as the current account. So it can be opened as the current account, saving account, or term deposits. So it can be maintained and opened in either of these forms: the current account, the saving account, or the term deposit, right? any NRI can open an RER account with the funds remitted to India through banks abroad. So this account is available for the NRI. For the NRIs, right? So this account is available only for NRIs. This account is not available for the PIO itself. The interest earned from this is tax free, right? So they want to incentivize the people, the NRI people, that they bring the money into India. So the government wants that the NRI, they deposit the money into India's bank account. So what are the features? Why would they like to invest into India? Because in India, the rate of interest is quite high as compared to the other countries. So the other countries are offering the rate of interest at a very low rate. Right? In the developed countries, the rate of interest is 2%, 3%. But if you come to India, you can even earn more than 6%, 7%, 8%. So that kind of facility is available in India. So from the NRI point of view, this is beneficial. And for the government point of view, this is beneficial because this brings foreign exchange. This increases the BOP balance. So this is always better. So that is why the interest has been kept tax-free. The amount held in this deposit together with the interest accrued can be repatriated. Repatriated means it can be returned back, right? So if some NRI is staying in USA and the NRI deposits this money for 1 year, after 1 year the person can take back the money, right? It is prone to risk of exchange rate fluctuation. Yes, this happens because if the person is maintaining the account in Indian rupee and in the future the person wants to withdraw the money from India bank account and want to take it to the foreign country, then the person will have to exchange the rupee into the foreign currency. So at that point of time, it will be difficult for the person if the exchange rate is fluctuated. So exchange rate fluctuation is with the person itself. So this is the risk. Third type of account, the non-resident ordinary account. So this is the ordinary account, right? Ordinary means this is open to anyone. So any person residing outside India. So the main thing is the person should be residing outside India. If the person is residing inside India, then this is not applicable. So any person residing outside India, that is in the foreign, irrespective of being Indian or not. So it does not matter whether the person is Indian or not. It does not matter. May open and maintain another account for the purpose of putting through bona fide transactions denominated in the Indian rupee or to manage the income earned in India, right? So this will be denominated in the Indian rupee, right? And any person, that means the person can be foreign citizen, the person can be PIO, the person can be NRI. It can be maintained in the form of current account, saving account, recurring or fixed deposit account. The income earned is taxable. So unlike the extra rupee account, this ordinary account is taxable. It is not prone to risk of exchange rate fluctuation. So there is no risk of exchange rate fluctuation. If a foreign tourist visiting India can open only another account, right? Because this is open to any person who resides outside India. So if a foreign tourist is visiting into India and want to keep some money into the Indian bank account, then this account is very, very. In this session, we will discuss external debt, right? So the name itself suggests external basically means from foreign countries, and the word debt means this is a loan. So this is the loan taken from the foreign countries. They are borrowings by a country. Borrowings means the loan, and the loan can be taken either by the government, so the central government of India, or the private sector, companies like Reliance, Tata, etc. from international money market, right? They are debt creating capital transactions. That means loan, capital transactions in the BOP. So in the balance of payment, they are the capital transactions. Capital transactions because they are impacting the liabilities. So they are our liabilities. So we receive the loan and then we have to repay in the future. So that is why they are called liabilities. And because they are liability, they are part of the capital account in the balance of payment statement. Now, there are three types of loan. One is external commercial borrowings. So the name itself says this is for the commercial purpose. That is for the business purpose, import, export purpose, right? So this is taken for the commercial reasons. External assistance. Assistance means there is some kind of relaxation. And third, trade credit. So this is purely for trading purposes. So these are the three primary categories of the loans. Now we will discuss each one of them in detail. Number one, ECB, external commercial borrowing. So what is external commercial borrowing? Commercial, for the business purpose, trading purpose, right? So if I am in India, I am raising any loan from outside India, and the average maturity period of that loan is 3 years, then this is called external commercial borrowing, right? And there are two categories of external commercial borrowing transaction. One is the automatic route, another is the approval route. Automatic route means that there is no approval required from the side of RBI. So the people who fall under the automatic route, they do not need to go to the RBI. They do not need to get the permission. They just go to the foreign market and raise the ECB, right? However, the people who are in the approval route, they need the prior permission of the RBI, right? So RBI has given well-defined regulations through which anyone can identify whether the person is eligible to get the ECB through the automatic route or from the approval route. And then there are many ways of raising the loan. It is not just through the bank account. There are many ways through which this loan can be raised. So now let us see everything in the language. ECB is a commercial loan. Name itself says commercial. External means from the foreign country. Borrowing means loan. So the commercial loan taken from external country. Very simple. In the economy, if you understand, if you break down, simplify the meaning of the terms, everything becomes crystal clear. Borrowings are raised at the market rate of interest without any concession. So the rate of interest is at the market rate. There is no relaxation because the purpose here is business. There is no charity, no relaxation, no assistance, right? So if we compare ECB with the external assistance, ECB is raised at the market rate of interest and external assistance is raised at comparatively low rate of interest, right? So when I compare it with the external assistance, in case of ECB, the rate of interest is at the market rate. Next, need. Why the external commercial borrowings are required? So one thing I have always been saying, that in the developed countries there is a lot of money and the banks, they do not pay good rate of interest on the money that is deposited by the customer. So for any investor, the good rate of interest is not available in the local market. So for them it is incentive to invest into the country like India. And for the country like India, for any Indian company, if we want to raise the loan from India itself, in India the rate of interest is very very high because there is shortage of money. The supply of money is less. It is a developing country. So if I am an Indian company, I want to raise the loan from India itself, rate of interest will be 6%, 7%, 8%. We have already studied the concept of MCLR. So after the concept of this base rate and MCLR, the rate of interest cannot be below the base rate, right? So for me, rate of interest cannot be below the base rate, which is very very high if I compare with the interest rate outside India. So as a businessman, I would always like to get the loan from outside India. So that is why this ECB is required. So this is the first reason. Second reason is that it allows the collaborations between Indian company and the foreign company. So the business increases. It leads to the foreign exchange inflow into India, which improves the balance of payment surplus. And then there are many other reasons. Let us see. First, raising funds from other countries is cheap. So I told you, in the developed countries, the rate of interest is very low. Investment and resource availability. So it brings the investment into India and it brings the resource into India. It allows the expansion of projects. The rate of interest is fixed and very low also. It promotes alliances, right? It cannot be used for investment in the stocks and real estate. So this cannot be used for the investment into the stocks and the real estate sector, right? So it cannot be used for the speculation purpose. Right? So this has to be raised for the genuine purpose, not for the speculation purpose. Now, who can raise the ECB? So there are some eligible people. So all those people who can receive the FDI as per the regulations of the government, they are eligible to raise the ECB. In addition to them, the port trusts, the port authorities, the port regulators, right? Not regulators, the managers, right? Units in SEZ, special economic zone. So special economic zones are basically, suppose this is India. So in this India, this is the SEZ. So all the transactions, all the production, all the sales, all the business which is happening over here, from the point of view of the Indian tax law and other commercial laws, all this work that is happening in the SEZ, this is considered to be happening in the foreign country. So none of the Indian tax law is applicable in this area. So this provides the incentive for companies to make the production inside India and still enjoying the benefit of the foreign country tax benefits, right? So the units which are located in SEZ, they can raise the money from ECB. Third, SIDBI, Small Industries and Development Bank of India. So this is a financial institution which raises the money from ECB for the development of the small industries. So through this we can promote small industries, right? So through SIDBI we can promote small industries. Through SEZ we can promote the exports from India. And fourth, Exim Bank, Export Import Bank. So through this we can increase our export import transactions, right? So to promote the international trade, even this port authority, they are for the international trade only. So all these transactions you can see, they are for the international trade purpose only. So these agencies are responsible for or eligible for raising the ECB. Now there are two different routes. One is automatic route. Automatic route means no RBI permission is required. Another is approval route. That means the prior approval of the RBI is required. Prior RBI approval. This is the only difference. Then who are eligible in the automatic route, who are eligible in the approval route, you do not need to remember all these names. ECB includes. So what are the forms in which ECB can be raised? So this ECB can be raised in the form of bank loan, in the form of securitized instruments, that is, for example, government bonds, or in the form of supplier's credit. So for example, if there is some supplier from USA, so USA supplier, it can give payment credit to the Indian importer. So Indian importer has imported the goods, and this USA supplier says that please you can pay after 3 years, after 2 years, right? So this is part of the supplier's credit. Buyer's credit, that means any foreign buyer, for example buyer from the USA, foreign buyer, he gives the advance to the Indian exporter for 2 years, 3 years, right? And in the future this Indian exporter is supplying the goods and services. So this is the buyer's credit. Loan from foreign collaborator, foreign equity holder. So loan from foreign collaborator, there is some collaboration with some foreign company, right? Or there is some foreign equity holder, means for example in case of Flipkart, so Flipkart is owned by the Walmart. Walmart is having shareholding in the Flipkart, right? So Walmart is the equity holder in the Flipkart. So this is called foreign equity holder. So Walmart is having the equity shares in the Flipkart, which is an Indian company. So if Walmart gives the loan to the Flipkart, this will be called ECB only, external commercial borrowing. The minimum average maturity must be 3 years. So it is not that any loan which is given for 2 months, 3 months, 1 year, 2 years, all those loans are not part of the ECB. Minimum maturity should be 3 years. So the categories that we just discussed, they were the primary categories. Apart from that, there are many other categories, right? So we already discussed that we can take the loan from the commercial banks, then they can be credit from the buyer and the supplier. We discussed the example. They can be securitized instrument, the instruments which are secure, for example floating rate notes and the government bonds. Credit from official export credit agencies. So there are official export credit agencies. For example, in India we have Exim Bank. So similarly in the foreign countries there are bank who give the loan to the foreign companies. Aid from the institutions such as IFC, International Financial Corporation, which is part of the World Bank, Asian Development Bank, etc. Foreign institutional investors, FIIs who have invested into the debt funds. Debt fund means, for example, debentures. Debentures means the instrument which have been issued for raising the loan, debt, and the money will be returned in the future. And in lieu of that loan, there is an interest which is paying regularly. Loan from foreign equity holder. So I already gave the example of Walmart. The Walmart giving the loan to its own company in the India, which is the Flipkart. Lines of credit from foreign banks. Lines of credit from foreign banks and financial institutions. Line of credit, it is again basically the loan. Financial lease. So lease is basically it's a loan which is given for a particular product. For example, the foreign bank can give the financial lease for machinery, etc. Import loans, foreign currency convertible bonds. So these are the bonds which are issued outside India. Bonds are basically the loan instruments. We will discuss these in the money market. Non-convertible, partially convertible and optionally convertible debentures and preference shares. So debentures, again debentures are the loan instruments. Preference shares are basically those shares in which the preference is given to the holder of the preference shares. So they are part of the ECB also. Asset-backed securities, mortgage-backed securities. Please, I would suggest don't get into the details. What is the meaning of that? In fact, I am going too much into detail. If you remember 5-6 items which I discussed in the previous session, those are more than sufficient. Now, this is important. ECBs have a minimum average maturity period of 3 years, barring exception in the few cases. So, except few cases, minimum. This is not the fixed. This is not the exact. This is the minimum. That means it can be 3 years, 5 years, etc. ECB can be borrowed in any freely convertible foreign currency. So this has to be borrowed in the foreign currency. This is very, very clear. This cannot be borrowed in the domestic currency. And this can be any currency. This can be US dollar. This can be, sterling pound, or it can be euro, right? So it can be in the form of any currency. Now, what can be the intended use? So it can be utilized everywhere except, so there are some areas where this cannot be utilized. So what are those areas? Number one, real estate. It cannot be invested into the real estate, because real estate is used mostly for the speculation purpose, for quick earning. Investment into the capital market, again this is not a genuine business purpose. This is for the short-term investment. Equity investment. So this cannot be used as the equity investment, because if it is used for the equity investment, then it will fall in the category of FPI or FII. Working capital purposes except from foreign equity holder. So it cannot be used for the working capital. Working capital means the day-to-day transaction. For example, payment to the staff, payment for the electricity, different kind of utility bills in the business. So all those transactions cannot happen through this ECB. General corporate purposes except from foreign equity holder. So if it is the money coming from the foreign equity holder, for example, Walmart is giving money to the Flipkart, in those cases these kind of purposes, this working capital or general purpose corporate or repayment of rupee loan, all this can be allowed, but in other cases this is not allowed. On lending to entities for the above activities. So if I am taking the ECB and I am lending this money to any other entity for any of these purposes, then it is also not allowed. Now, Economic Survey 2019-20. So this is the economic survey which came in the month of February 2020. So as per this economic survey, there is some observation. So this says an increase in the net ECB, right? Now, what is the meaning of word net? Net means the outflow is adjusted, right? So inflow minus outflow, right? An increase in the net ECB. Inflow minus outflow. Inflow means the money which we are raising from outside India. Outflow means the money which is going from India to outside India in the form of ECB only, right? An increase in net ECB improves the BOP position. Definitely, if there is increase in ECB, it will add to the capital account. The capital account will improve, and if capital account improves, it will improve the balance of payment. But it worsened the BOP by turning negative during the 2014-19. So during these 5 years, it turned negative. from a healthy positive level of 2019-14. So during the last initial 5 years there was positive and now it is negative. So you can see during 9 to 14 it was 42.8 US dollar billion. During 14 to 19 this is minus 4.24. So outflow is more than inflow, right? So outflow is more than inflow. Now the second type of loan is external assistance. Again, if you break down the terms, external means from the foreign countries. Assistance means that there is some relaxation, right? So if the loan is given from outside India, again this is a loan, this is not a grant, this is not the gift, this is not the charity, right? So this is a loan, but this loan is given on relaxed terms and conditions. So either the rate of interest is low, or the maturity period is high. That means that repayment period is high. The repayment period is high. So they are borrowings with consideration of assistance, right? It involves, number one, lower rate of interest, and number two, longer maturity, right? So lower rate of interest. So if normally the rate of interest is 5%, we can get this at 1%. Longer maturity period means if normally we need to repay in 25 years, instead of this we can be allowed to repay at the end of 50 years. So this will allow more usage period. External assistance is generally given by foreign governments. So who gives? Foreign governments like Japan. So Japan gives is through the Overseas Development Agency. So there is an agency which is called Overseas Development Agency. This agency gives the loan at a low rate of interest or for the long period of time. Or the World Bank also gives such kind of loan, or IMF or other international monetary institutions. So this is the external assistance. So whenever you hear the term external assistance, don't think that this is a gift, this is not a grant. This is a loan which is given on relaxed terms and conditions. Trade credit, right? Trade credit. So trade means for the business purpose, credit means that this is for a short period, right? So the major difference between the ECB and trade credit is that ECB minimum maturity period is 3 years. Here the maximum maturity period is 3 years. So if the loan is received in the form of trade credit for up to 3 years, then it becomes part of the trade credit. Trade credit is provided to an importer. So who gets? The person who is the importer, importing the money, importing the goods and services, by overseas supplier. So either the supplier will be giving the credit, the supplier will say, okay, you take the machinery of $1 lakh and you pay the payment after 1 year. So that is credit for 1 year. Or maybe bank will provide, bank will say, okay, you take the loan for buying the machinery from USA and you give us after 1 year, 2 year. Or any financial institution or other permitted recognized lenders. So they are providing the loans. It allows the importer to pay at a later date. So I gave the example that now importer can pay after 1 year, 2 year. Meanwhile, the importer can earn the money for import of capital or non-capital goods. So it can be either for the capital goods like machinery or for the non-capital goods like raw material, simple raw material, permissible under foreign trade policy of government. So only for those goods which are permitted in the foreign trade policy of the government of India. Only a resident of India can take trade credit, right? So only and only resident of India, that means NRI, PIO, foreign citizen, they are not allowed. Under automatic route, an amount up to 150 million per import transaction for oil, gas, refining and marketing, airlines and shipping companies, and up to US 50 million per import transaction for others, right? So for the automatic route, in case of all these 150 million per import transaction, and in other cases 50 million per import transactions, right? So this 150 million dollar per import transaction you do not need to remember, right? Period of trade credit. So this is very crucial. The period is up to 3 years for the import of capital goods, and up to 1 year or the operating cycle, whichever is less, for the non-capital goods, right? So if it is for the machinery, it can be maximum for 3 years. If it is for the raw material, then it can be maximum for 1 year, or the operating cycle, whichever is less. Operating cycle means the duration during which we can convert the raw material into the finished goods, right? So if the raw material takes 6 months to convert from the raw material to the finished goods, the processing time is just 6 months, then the maximum period allowed for the trade credit is this 6 months only, not 1 year, right? So either 1 year or the operating cycle, whichever is lower. Now there is one more observation in the economic survey which was released in the month of February 20, that after a significant reduction in the 2014-19 relative to 2009-14, India's external debt to GDP ratio slightly increased by 0.3% at the end of first half of 2020 over its level of, right? That means there is slight increase in the external debt to the GDP ratio. Now, external debt according to economic survey, in the terms of foreign exchange reserves cover to external debt, India's position is 5th highest at 75.9%, right? So in terms of foreign exchange reserve to external debt, right? So it means that if we are having the external debt of 100 rupees, then we already have 75.9 rupees in our foreign exchange reserve. So immediately we can pay 75.9 rupees out of 100 rupees that we have as a loan. Whereas India has 5th lowest short-term debt to foreign exchange reserves. So our short-term debt is lowest, which is a good news, because if the short-term debt is low, that means in the short term we do not need to repay anything. That means our loan is for the long term. That means there is no reason to worry. We do not need to arrange the foreign exchange in a short period of time. At 25.1% among the top 25 developing debtor countries. Though India is the 3rd largest debtor country, 3rd largest loan taking company. Debtor means the person who has taken the loan. In absolute amounts among the developing countries. So among the developing countries, in absolute, that is in the rupee amount, or in the currency amount, after China and Brazil, India is the 3rd largest debtor. Higher age of debt, that means the higher maturity period, right? So maturity period is not just 1 year, 2 year. The maturity period is 25 year, 30 year, 50 year. So it reduces the rollover risk. Rollover risk means we do not need to repay and take back the loan again and again. So that risk is reduced, right? Otherwise we need to repay the loan, and maybe in the future we will not be able to get back the loan from other person. So this risk always is there. This is very important table, you can see, and in fact the question has already come in 2019, 2018 from here. I will discuss that question separately. You just understand this. This table indicates that between 2014 and 2018. So this is the statement I have taken from the economic survey of 2017-18, economic survey of last year. Sorry, 18-19, sorry, economic survey of 18-19, right? So here you can see that this line represents short term debt. So short term debt is between 20.5% to this 19.9%, right? And long term debt is between 79.5% to 80%. That means more than 80% of our loan is for the long term. There is no risk in the short term. We can be safe, we can be happy because there is no obligation in the short term. So this is a good news. So the question has already come on this topic in the prelims examination. I will discuss that separately. So with this external debt session is over, and I hope you understood the concept, you enjoyed the concept. Thank you very much. God bless you.